My boy Bubba pulling through. Welcome everyone back to the episode of MDK Racing Victory Stop. My name is Jet. Hope we're having a wonderful Sunday. The 20th race of the NASCAR season has just concluded at New Hampshire, and it was one of the better New Hampshire races. It wasn't the best, but we saw some good racing take place, and the playoff grid just got a lot shakier with this win. Stage 1 and 2, it basically seemed as if it was going to be Martin Truex Jr.'s race to lose. I mean, he dominated the basically for majority of the race, led 172 of the 301 laps and swept both stages. But it really got interesting in stage number 3. We're going to skip to that since nothing much really happened in stage 2 in terms of what took place up front, but there were some moments that we're going to talk about later in this episode. But alright, stage 3, the top 3 drivers are Truex, obviously leading the most laps, Chase Elliott, and Kevin Harvick, who seemed as if he was going to be one of the only drivers that could be able to contend, or at least keep up with Truex. So many of us looked at those 3 as the guys to beat. But then a caution came out with Todd Gilliland spinning in turns 3 and 4, I believe with around 80 or so laps to go. And that caused 3 drivers to stay out, Kurt Busch, Joe Logano, and Cole Custer. However, Truex, Elliott, and Harvick, those guys pitted, but Truex, and I think even Harvick, they took 2 tires. As a result of that, as well as Elliott, who took 4 tires, they had to start mid-pack. And especially for a guy like Truex, who is not used to starting anywhere around traffic. He started up front, led almost the entire way up front. He has had no experience with this car in traffic. Now all of a sudden when he's under 100 laps to go, he's in the middle of traffic and his car just falls off like a rock. Well, I shouldn't say a rock. A rock is a bit of an overstatement, but regardless, it did not appear to drive the same. It was loosened, tied off. The car was just a mess with all the dirty air being packed onto your cars. You're slipping and sliding everywhere. Your car is going to handle incredibly different than it would have in clean air. And especially to have no experience of that until right then and there, I mean, it was very difficult for Truex to keep up with the pack. And also one thing to point out is that track position was extremely key. We saw some drivers that they were able to stay out in front and actually keep the lead, or at the very least be within the top 5 for a good period of time. And one of those was Kurt Busch and Joe Logano. Custer fell back, but still was around in the top 5. But Busch and Logano, they stayed out and they were able to be 1 and 2 for a good portion of the final stretch of the race. Then eventually, those drivers with fresher tires of Chase Elliott and Christopher Bell, they started to catch up. And all of a sudden you have a 4-car battle for the lead with Logano and Elliott heating up. They even made contact on the front straightaway. And then you throw in the 20-car of Bell into the mix, who's just waiting in the wings. And even Kurt, even though he's a race leader, he's in within arm's reach. And you have this 4-car battle for the lead. And for a couple of laps, it was very entertaining to watch. But we all clearly knew that Elliott and Bell had the faster car. Eventually, the 2 drivers were able to get by Logano and get by Kurt Busch to now become 1 and 2. But it seemed as though as Elliott kind of used up his stuff. We saw, if you watch the footage, especially him trying to run down Kurt Busch, he was desperately pushing the car, pushing it to the limit, was sliding the tires, losing it off of the corners. He was clearly using his stuff. And while he did get the lead, by the time he got the lead, his car was basically used up. While Christopher Bell was conservative. He was reserving his tires, reserving his stuff to be able to prepare for the pass for the lead with Chase Elliott. And when he got to Chase, I was surprised by how effortlessly it looked. Bell just drove it into the corner and passed Chase like it was nothing, like he was a lap car almost. I mean, I was surprised by, it almost looked like as if Elliott just let him by. That's how easy of a pass it was. It didn't seem like a pass for the lead. Elliott didn't even try to put up a fight, but to be quite honest, I don't think he could have because his car was just really off pace. I mean, I think Christopher Bell opened up to a 2 or 3 second lead on Elliott. He had to build up a massive gap between the two, and Bell was able to go on and cruise to his 2nd career Cup Series win, his first win since the Daytona Road Course in February of 2021, and now becomes the 14th different winner of 2022. That ties a record for most amount of different race winners through the first 20 races of the season. And that also means another spot has been taken in the playoff grid. Chase Elliott finishes in 2nd place. Bubba Wallace with, well, many of you, including myself, his best career race so far. He won at Talladega last year, but this was his best race. Started in 4th place, was inside the top 10 for all but I think 46 laps, in the top 5 for a good amount of the race, comes home to finish third. An incredible run for that 23 team. Finally, they get some good luck under their belts. They were able to put on a solid race with no issues, and shows that they got speed and they can contend with the big boys up front. Martin Truex Jr. was able to rebound, but only up to 4th place, and Kevin Harvick in 5th. Denny Hamlin 6th. Brad Keselowski. Now, him and Brad Keselowski had a very eventful day. This was his best finish since, I think, Martinsville. It's been a long time since we've seen the 6 car be anywhere near inside the top 10. They really needed this run, but there was a moment between him and Austin Dillon, took place on the back straightaway during caution, under caution. No idea why, but those two just started sideswiping each other. Somehow, Keselowski, even though he had pretty significant damage to the left front of his car, was able to rebound nicely, like I said, in the top 10, but still, very odd. We still don't know the exact reason of it. Many people assume that maybe it was because of what took place in Michigan last year in Stage 2, where Keselowski wrecked Austin Dillon on the front stretch, but other than that, it was very weird for Austin to hit Keselowski like that. But back to the results. 8th is Ross Chastain. 9th, his teammate Daniel Suarez, and Kurt Busch. Now, Kurt pitted with around 20 or so laps to go, and with those 4 fresh tires, he was able to rebound back up inside the top 10. William Byron in 11th. Kyle Busch in 12th. Now, Kyle Busch, he also had a very eventful day. He spun out twice, once on a restart. The first time was on a restart in turn 2, and the second time, all by himself in turn 4. And somehow, he was able to rebound to a 12th place finish. May not seem like a win, but for the day he had, it's somewhat of a positive day. Austin Cindric, 13th. Kyle Larson, 14th. Larson just had a pretty off day today. Chase Briscoe also spun earlier in the race, rebounds to 15th. AJ Allmendinger, 16th. Buscher, 17th. Blaney, another driver, spun in turns 3 and 4, finishes in 18th. Eric Jones, 19th, and Justin Haley in 20th. Some other notables: Reddick, 21st, Stenhouse Dillon, 22nd, 23rd, Logano, 24th. Again, he was up there with the lead pack near the final stretch of the race, came onto pit road and was just never able to recover. There you see Cole Custer, 27th. He had a strong run, it seemed, until when he came onto pit road, had an issue with the right side. A long pit stop ruined his chance of having a solid run. Eric Almirola, only midway through the race, only had 3rd gear. Didn't have any other gear, just 3rd gear. They tried to repair it, but they weren't able to do so, and they took it to the garage. Finishes 31st. Ty Dillon, Josh Bilicki, Alex Bowman, and BJ McLeod, and Corey LaJoie, they were all involved in major accidents that took place on the front stretch, and Alex Bowman was involved in the first caution of the day that involved Ty Dillon. Dillon just got loose in turns 1 and 2 after contact with Justin Haley, collects Bowman and McLeod and Bilicki in the process. Now let's take a look at the playoff grid. 6 races to go until the playoffs begin. Now look at this. 14 drivers are colored in green. 2 spots remaining, at least for drivers that have not won. Ryan Blaney, Martin Truex Jr. plus 105 for Blaney, plus 68 for Truex. Kevin Harvick had a top 5 day up front all race long. And instead of, he came into this race minus 19, now leaves minus 68 with Bell winning. Eric Almirola minus 129, Eric Jones minus 154, and Austin Dillon minus 198. So yeah, this race, in my opinion, it wasn't the best New Hampshire race. In fact, I would argue that last year's race was more entertaining, but still, this race was pretty solid. We saw a lot of passes mid-pack. I thought NBC did a really good job of showcasing battles that took place mid-pack instead of just focusing on Truex and the leader. Stage 1, Stage 2, I will admit, it was a bit meh. Like, even though Truex was still leading, there were still some battles, but still there were good portions of those first 2 stages that were a bit dead. But still, NBC, I thought they did a real good broadcast. It really made the race entertaining. And Stage 3 was very fun to watch. A lot of new contenders up front with Kurt, Logano, and Bell coming in. And yeah, it was really exciting, that final stage. So I give this race, I think, a 7.5 out of 10. Or 7 out of 10. I thought this was a pretty solid race. Wasn't the best, but pretty solid for I guess, New Hampshire standards. But yeah, 2311 Racing and Bubba Wallace. Bubba and Kurt, even though Kurt finished 10th, him and Bubba had really great runs. Really nice to see those two having, as a team, having a solid race instead of just one having a solid race. But Man, Christopher Bell, he has been showing speed, but something always happens that prevented him from finishing strong. So it's nice to see a good race go his way. Chase Elliott, his 4th consecutive top 2 finish. That 9 team is putting on a very strong final stretch to the playoffs and could be a major contender. I think he is currently the regular season points leader, so if he does win it, he's going to have 15 extra bonus points to his already 20 at the moment. So he could head into Darlington with a lot of momentum on his side. But nothing else much to say. But man, this playoff grid is getting very intense. We have 6 races to go. 2 spots up for grabs. And you look at the final 6 races. I'm looking at my phone here. You got Pocono. You got the Indy Road Course. That could be a wild card. You have Michigan, Richmond, Watkins Glen, and then of course Daytona. 6 races that operate and work completely differently in their own right. I mean, I would even argue that, maybe, people like, maybe Kyle Busch, Alex Bowman, those drivers, 11th and 12th on the playoff grid, they're not safe. I wouldn't even put money on them being safe yet, which is shocking that we may actually have more than 16 race winners this season. But the next gen car has basically put up a level playing field across the board, parity that like we have never seen before in recent memory in NASCAR. And it's going to be very, very exciting what these final 6 races are going to be like when we get to Daytona in late August. But this race was really good, in my opinion, really solid. We saw JGR, specifically with Christopher Bell in 2311 Racing, they shine bright. Hendrick, even though this wasn't their best track, Chase Elliott, again, shined. Bowman wasn't able to do anything, and he got caught up in a crash earlier in the race. Larson and Byron just never showed any speed. Elliott was the only Chevrolet driver to really show some type of speed. Not even Chastain, even though Chastain had some moments, like between him and Denny Hamlin, they had a moment in turns 3 and 4 where they made a little contact. But outside of that, really Chevrolet just wasn't there, except for Elliott's. But yeah, that's going to conclude this episode of MDK Racing Victory Side. What are your thoughts on this race? Tell me in the comment section down below. Did you like it? Did you not? But until next time, my name is Jett from MDK. Thank y'all so much for watching, and congratulations to Christopher Bell, your winner at New Hampshire.